Hello! Welcome back! I've decided to start some late night shenanigans. It's actually not that late, but it's winter, so the sun is gone by like 4:30 p.m. I have decided to attempt going to Fanfest in Vegas this year. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be able to get tickets. The tickets are not out yet, but I want to get a head start on my costume because I want to make sure it's done on time and I don't want to rush the process. Today, I'll be starting on Y'shtola from Final Fantasy XIV, specifically the version from Shadowbringers. I already bought the wig, and that's it. I haven't done anything else. I bought a wig. So today, I think I'm just gonna start on making a mock-up, like at least the base shape of it. And the way I'm gonna do that is I'm gonna use my mannequin, I'm gonna duct tape her, and then I'm gonna draw all my style lines for the bodice piece, and then add the pieces for the skirt separately flat. So I'm gonna pattern that flat in 2D instead of in 3D. Another thing is, like, my mannequin is actually a bit smaller than me, but it shouldn't be a problem. It's close enough that it'll be a minor adjustment and it'll be easier to draw the style line straight onto a 3D form than flat because she's got quite a lot going on around the shoulders. That's the plan. If I could get that down, we'd be in a good place, honestly. Afterwards, the props and stuff, I'm probably just gonna order from Dangerous Ladies. But we'll get back to that when we get to that. So, let's get started. So we're starting off with a cosplay classic here. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap my mannequin with plastic packing wrap before switching to regular tape. I'm making sure to get it all over my mannequin to properly secure everything into place. You really need to make sure to get into all the nooks and crannies here and to stay as close to the body as possible. I know Y'shtola also wears a choker, so I'm making sure to get a snug fit around the neck. Once the tape is all applied, I always start by drawing my center lines before drawing out any other style lines. There are a lot of details on Y'shtola, so I'm trying to keep everything as clear as humanly possible, including using a different colored marker for different aspects of her costume. I also find it very practical to mark your waistline and hip line when necessary. You don't see me do this in the video, but right after marking out my armholes, I also made sure to mark out my sight seam. When switching to the back, I once again mark my center line before marking any other style lines. Okay, so I'm back, and I have essentially taken the piece and cut it out. I always have to remove 4 cm at the waist because my waist is just so much shorter than the average. I've also added a dart here at the bust or else it won't fit properly. It's like the front panel, center front. So I'm gonna have some kind of attach here where it can be removed. And then I'm gonna have this piece that comes in here like this. And I'll have to adjust the length of this because then I remove a lot of waist. This won't be properly kind of distanced. I'm gonna go ahead and transfer this onto paper. Okay, so I actually ended up using my blocks to make these two pieces. And the reason I used my blocks is because they're a bit closer to my measurement and it was just easier than trying to grade the other pieces to be a bit bigger. But it wasn't a complete waste of time because I used those as a reference to kind of get those pieces just in a proper measurement. What I'm going to do is make a mock-up, see how it looks, and it'll be a very basic mock-up with like none of the style lines on the bodice, and then adjust where it needs to be adjusted and draw the style line directly on me. I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and I'll be back with the mock-up piece. Alright, so this is the best lighting I have for this, but essentially I finished my mock-up. I think the fit is not too bad. So I'm going for a pretty sexy-ish doll, like it's gonna be very low cut. Some of the modifications I have to do here, obviously my dart needs to be shortened, and it needs to be shortened here. I want it to be a bit tighter under the boob, so that there's a lot of like kind of inbuilt structure to keep the tatas up, because I would rather not wear a bra because it's a completely open back. Yeah. The neck looks good, it's a bit too wide, so I'm marking how low I want it to be. I'm marking my side seam where my jewels are going to go, but that's also I think where I'm going to put one of the openings. I added my style line here. Also, this is really good. I love how this fits. So imagine like the fur is going to come up here, then it's going to be in between this seam, going all the way to the back. Yeah. Here's my back. Yeah, I can't really see much, so we'll have to make do, but that's essentially what I have. I think the bar, which is here, is a bit higher than in the original artwork, but I kind of like it with a very open back. But it's too long here at the center back, so I'm going to have to remove some of the seam allowance here, and I think I won't bring this down all the way. I will cheat and stop it here because the way it pulls here, I find is very unflattering and unnecessary. I don't think you can hear me very well, I'm sorry, but yep, that's pretty much it. I have a few tweaks to do, but the top I think is gonna look really good. So I'm gonna take this off, make my corrections, and maybe do a second mock-up just to be sure that everything is fitting well. Let's do this. A little end to the night, so I've corrected all my pieces. So the front piece is now made out of two pieces. I have a dart there, but I closed up this one completely. Not sure how that's gonna look, so we'll see. Then there's my other side with my corrected dart. I have decided to go on an asymmetrical hem. I really wanted to look kind of like it was, the French word for this is rapiécé, but I'm not sure how to say that in English, but that's the kind of look I'm going for. This, nothing has changed. It was perfect. I love the way it sat, so there's nothing to change here. My back piece, I have corrected. Here I've decided to eliminate the lower eyelet. It's not going to be as accurate, but I don't really care because it'll sit nicer. I've corrected my strap position, and now the back piece is all good. I have a left and a right because, again, the hem is asymmetrical, so I needed to match with the front pieces. So tomorrow I'm going to come back. I'm going to make myself a second mock-up of the top, and hopefully this time it'll be good, and maybe we can get a head start on the skirt. All right. Mock-up number 2. Honestly, I think this is it. I love the low cut. I find that's very sexy. The added dart really helps, like, you know, hold up the boobs. You can kind of see the nipples, though I might have to like blur this out. The one thing here is my husband pointed out to me that it pokes. This can probably be flattened out, but just in case, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue the line, make this into 2 pieces, so you have something a bit more smooth going up here, and same thing on this side. But otherwise, it's looking pretty gosh darn good. Let me show you the back. Yeah, I'm in my pajamas, please don't judge. So yeah, I removed, it was originally coming down all the way here, but I find that when it pulls here, it doesn't look very good. So I'm just gonna start it up a bit higher, and it looks really good. I'm really happy with how it looks. So I'm gonna do a few more adjustments to the pieces at the front, like I said I would, and then I'm gonna start developing the sleeves. So I think I'm gonna go into more details on how I developed the sleeve. So we're gonna set ourselves up for that. All right, welcome back. So now we're gonna be working on our sleeve. We need it to be essentially widened up so we get a nice big bell-shaped sleeve. I went ahead and measured around my wrist. I want 74 centimeters total. I have 23 centimeters here at the bottom. So I want to go ahead and add about 51 centimeters. I'm gonna round it out and say 50. So I'm making myself some lines here as a reference point to widening my sleeve. This is a classic slash and spread technique, but you can do it without actually slashing your piece. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is see how much, when I straighten out this part, how much it adds at each end. Then take that difference and divide it by the amount of slashes I have.
So let's do that. So I'm going to go from here to here. Okay? I'm going to go at a 90-degree angle.
That adds about 6 cm. So 50 minus 6 and 6 on the other end, so minus 12. We're going to end up with 38 cm missing. So 38 cm divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that gives me 6.3. I'm going to go with 6.5. Then I'm going to add 6.5 per line and then straighten out this, and I should get a total of about 74 cm. It's not exact, but it doesn't matter. So the way you do it is you make sure to keep this the way it is. You mark your bottom, and then you're gonna add from here about 6.5, and from here, while keeping this well in place, you've marked your 6.5. It's about here. Make sure that this is good, and then mark this. Go all the way up to your other line. Same at the top. Go all the way up to your other line. And then from there, you're gonna spread up to 6.5. Go up here, mark your other point. Here, mark your other point, and you do it again. And that's how you slash and spread without actually slashing and spreading anything. That's why it's really convenient. You can just use your block. And you don't have to make a new block that you're gonna cut into and spread open. That's why I personally like to do it this way. I don't know how clear it is, but it's a really good technique, yeah. Now the last thing we're gonna do here is we're gonna take this, extend this out, and do the same thing as the other side, which is kind of bring this here to a 90-degree angle. And there you have it. Big bell sleeve. It works so well. And in between, well, you just go ahead and kind of like connect them like this. And when you cut them later, you just want to round it out a bit more. Qu'est-ce qu'il y a, Timon? Qu'est-ce qu'il y a? There you go. So I'm going to cut it out and I'm going to test it and we'll see how it fits and we'll make adjustments afterwards.
I'm going to call my mother.
Why are you calling your mom?
So after trying on my first sleeve mock-up, I decided to readjust the sleeve to give it a tighter fit around the upper arm, but keep the design very large and bell-shaped at the hem of the sleeve. I'm using my mock-up itself to develop 2 separate pattern pieces, which were later actually turned into 3 pattern pieces. I think I'll show you a little bit more of that in just a second.
Here we are. We have a sleeve. So I think the idea of adjusting it, it's actually in 3-piece now, just to kind of get as much of a bell shape as possible.
works out for the best. I have finally finished all my pattern pieces, so I'm going to show one at a time just to give an idea of what they look like. So for my sleeve, I really wanted to get that big bell shape at the bottom, but I needed something more fitted at the arm because that's what hers looks like. So I ended up splitting it initially into 3 long panel pieces, but ultimately I opted with the back piece to be split in the middle like this. So this line would essentially be here and it'll be much more subtle, and you'll only have 2 style lines at the side. I think that's gonna look really cool, and it's gonna give me some really nice results. The back has stayed pretty much the same. I've opted here to add an overlap. So the way it's gonna be done is I think I'm gonna put some snaps at the bottom so it can be snapped and unsnapped. You'll have the lacing here, my strap position, and kind of collar piece comes all the way down here. And I ended up adding a little bit more length at the back. Now the front pieces are definitely more confusing. You have these 2 pieces that come kind of like this, and then on the other side you have these 2 pieces that come together here, and then there's like a style line here, and I'm gonna have the strap at the front, and this is my collar piece, which is gonna be cut on fold. It kind of comes like this and goes down at the back. So you end up having like this crisscross like that. And that's my collar along with the back strap. So those are all my pattern pieces so far. Bodice is essentially done. So yeah, it's really good. Here's what it looks like, kind of like on a mannequin. It's a bit big on my mannequin, but my mannequin is a bit smaller than me. But you can kind of see the style lines. There's one here, and there's one long one here. It's gonna look really cool once it's done, and I add the ruffles and the other excess pieces at the bottom. So the next part is definitely gonna be to work on the skirt part. Okay, so it's been a hot minute since I've worked on this costume, but it's official. I got my tickets for Fanfest. My goal is to finish this costume by then. We're gonna try our best, but no, we're gonna make it happen. We're gonna make it happen. So I'm still at the mock-up phase. Last time I had finished the shirt, and now I'm gonna try to start on the dress. No, on the skirt. I know it's like a full dress, but I'm gonna do it in 2 pieces, maybe even in 3 pieces. I have to double check my image reference. But yeah, so I'm gonna start on that today. If I could get half of it done, then good. Try to finish the other half tomorrow, and then I'm gonna start looking at fabrics. Fingers crossed it won't take too long. All right, let's get started. For the skirt, I'm going to use a lot of draping to slowly build the shape straight onto my mannequin. I'll be working exclusively with muslin and muslin scraps for this. Honestly, I didn't know what to do with all these scrap pieces, so this is actually a good opportunity to do something with it. So the first pieces I'm starting with are the longer skirt pieces that overlap over the base. I know that for the base, I'll definitely be using a circle skirt. I always keep a few different skirt and matching skirt patterns from Needle Workshop on hand for any kind of circle skirt related project. So I'll be building my layers over a half circle skirt that I own, knowing full well that I'll be using that pattern later. This process mainly involves a lot of eyeballing, cutting, pinning, and reshaping as needed. Even my gathered pieces are eyeballed to begin with, and then the gathers are readjusted and pinned into place until I get something that I'm happy with. I did decide though that a lot of these gathers will be replaced with pleating later. It's always better to pin in place a piece that is too long or too large, and that you can then cut and adjust as needed. The hem of the shirt was missing some additional details before being completely finalized. On one side, I'll be layering some gathers that will be held in place with like fake cross-stitched X shapes. while the other side needs to be extended and somehow shaped into like a wave-like pattern at the hem. This can be achieved with leather or full leather by just stretching out the hem because the material allows itself to be stretched out. But since I'll be using fabric, I will probably need to do some kind of slash and spread in some areas and put some inset pieces. So I'll probably be taking some artistic liberties here. Throughout this whole process, I have several reference images open on my computers at all time to use as constant visual reference. Alright, so quick update. I have a very rough mock-up here of the skirt. Far from perfect right now, but I think we're getting somewhere. I showed it to my husband and he says he really likes it. So what I'm gonna do is a lot of like smaller pieces or certain pieces like this one. I'll just take the measurements and see how much gather length per length of this I want, and the smaller pieces I can cut up and use as a pattern piece itself. Like this one I don't love, so I will reshape that. But the rough is there and the base is this circle skirt pattern, so I just need to kind of jot down all the notes that I'll need to get somewhere. I think for tonight, I'm going to stop here and I'll get back to you tomorrow. The first thing I did here was readjust the hem of my shirt. I'm marking out the hem of the mock-up shirt before unpinning the extension and cutting off the excess fabric. I transferred that shape onto paper and then started aligning it to the hem of the pattern pieces. The fit was far from perfect, that's why there's so much paper that ended up being pleated to make everything match properly. As I said before, that additional volume that I took off will be added back later with inset pieces. Since there's so many pieces attached to the waistband, I'm going ahead and marking where each piece goes on the waistband. It's really important to name each piece and clearly identify them all. Otherwise, it gets very confusing very quickly. I'm also making any other adjustments to all my skirt pieces based on some feedback I gave myself after trying on the mock-up. I also developed a cuff piece out of muslin and I'm now adjusting it before transferring it onto paper. And here's the final mock-up. I'm not wearing it completely perfectly here, like the back isn't fully laced up properly, but I already knew the bodice kind of fitted well, so it's just kind of seeing how it fit with the skirt, which I had just finished. So I'm really happy with how it turns out. I did add like the shaping at the hem of the biggest skirt. Looks really good. I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm very happy with how it turned out. The only thing I'm going to change is I think some of the gathers are going to be substituted for pleats instead. But outside of that, I think it's pretty much done and it looks pretty good if I may say so myself. So I think that kind of wraps up everything for this video. If you're interested in seeing me like continue making this costume, I'll be going over like every part of the process here on YouTube through like different vlog formats. If ever you'd like to support this channel, I mean I know I'm very small, but if ever, I think the best way would be to go through Ko-fi. I'll link it in the description box below, but you can do like small donations there and all of that money will be reinvested in getting supplies and materials for YouTube. If not, you can also just, watch the videos, check my social media accounts out. That's the best way to support someone if you don't want to spend any money. I hope to see you again and hope to have everything done for Fanfest. Fingers crossed. Bye.